this video I will show how I manual swapped my Lexus IS300 from 2003. I managed to get cruise control to work, which seems to be one of the things that many people who keep the automatic ECU are not able to do. I did not film all the details of the assembly because there is plenty of videos on YouTube that already do a really good job at showing how to do it. Be sure to check out the links in the descriptions as well. The main focus is to resolve cells, so the engine light, and getting the cruise control to work. Enjoy the video. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. You will need a gearbox. This is a J160 gearbox from an IS200. These are plentiful in Europe. They do hold less power, but if it's a street-driven car and you're not using it for drifting and hard launching, then this should hold up just fine. You will also need a bell housing adapter kit. In Ireland there's a company that produces these. You will have to send your old one back to them once you receive the new one, but that's not an issue. The good part is that you don't have to pay any import tax. To see details about how to install this adapter and also the gearbox, I really recommend to watch George Humple YouTube videos that are also linked in the description. And he also has videos on how to do the clutch and so forth. You will need the flywheel bolts, clutch alignment tool, pilot bearing, clutch disc, clutch pressure plate bolts, a new clutch bearing, and of course clutch pressure plate. For the clutch setup I contacted Conceptua Tuning in the UK. They provided me with the entire clutch setup. If you want to get the kit from somewhere, then you should get the W58 clutch and flywheel kit. It's also present on the non-turbo Supra. The front part of IS200 drive shaft, the rear part will remain from the automatic clutch pedal, and you will need the whole assembly including the clutch master cylinder. Then also you'll need the clutch line and the slave cylinder. All of these I got from an IS200. With the brake pedal you will only need the metal part here. You don't actually need the whole assembly. You will need the shifter. Then you also might want to get this traction control and snow button. And here I have a bunch of resistors. I got them from eBay like for 10 euros. These will emulate my automatic transmission. These are now a bit optional item. Protective cover for the gear shifter, and then also this body connector or whatever you call it. This will block out road noise and so on, but you don't need it. And also there is the manual bezel. So yeah, these are all the parts I will install. Lift up the car, make sure you use jack stands. This one here is just for safety, and also these boards here and here are also for safety in case that one fails. Same story on the other side. First thing, you'll have to remove the cover, drain the automatic gearbox oil, and remove the drive shaft and also this part of the exhaust. And very possibly we might have to move the headers. You also need to remove these coolant lines here. These are for the transmission cooler. However, in my case, since these nuts over there are so fucked up, I already had cut it from here, so I can just loosen them up. If you're not planning to sell the transmission or ever put it back, you can just cut these lines here. I decided to remove the drive shaft, only the front part, and leave the rear part in. I already got two of the screws out, but since both of the rear wheels are on the ground, then you cannot turn this around. So I raised up one of the rear wheels, and now I can turn this around and access the last two bolts, and I should get the drive shaft out. So now I will just lower the wheel and get this out. The front part of the drive shaft is removed. Now I disconnected the gear linkage and I put a rubber glove over the drive shaft entry so it wouldn't drip. Loosened up 2 of the bolts for the engine mounts on both sides. This will enable us to tilt the engine back, and make sure you disconnect the airbox and possibly also coolant lines, because when the engine moves backwards then it might tear them. So here I have already loosened the rear gearbox mount. In order to access these bell housing bolts, I will use a long extension from the rear to open these up. So once you tilt the engine back, then from the back here you will be able to access the upper bell housing bolts. Another note, when you're removing the automatic transmission, then you need to also remove the plugs before you can drop it. So one plug is here on the right side where this shifter lever is. Then one 2-pin one is here in the back. Then another bigger one is here. And the fourth one is next to the bell housing in the front part here. Also, the wiring loom is held in by 2 brackets. One is attached here. You can either unbolt this and take out the metal part, or you can undo the plastic clip that holds the wiring loom. And there's another one somewhere here, I think. So if you do undo these 2 bolts, then the wiring loom will come loose. Before dropping the transmission or loosening up the bell housing, you should disconnect the torque converter from the engine, and you have to remove this cover, then take off the bolts. It's 8 small bolts there, and yeah, you can use the crank to rotate the engine, and then it's very easy to access these bolts here. While it is possible to get the transmission out without removing the exhaust, it is way easier to get the transmission out if you remove the exhaust. You only need to remove the air pipe, and then you can remove the exhaust, and I hung it up a bit so it wouldn't fall down. As you can see, I have dropped the automatic transmission. I already took off the torque converter, so it would be a bit easier to move. So now we are removing the automatic gearbox starter wheel. Hello, rear main seal. I have already replaced that one before, so I will not replace it this time. However, if you have not replaced it, you should definitely change out this seal as well. If you want to see in detail how to remove the automatic transmission and replace the rear main seal, I highly recommend Tuner with Kids YouTube channel. See link in the description. He also has a video series on how to manual swap the Lexus. However, he is using a different transmission, and he's also not keeping the automatic ECU. So the wiring of his video series will be different. So now it's time we remove the central console. The heat seaters are fairly easy to pop out. Just make sure you take a picture of which plugs go where, because they're exactly the same. Piece of this one will not go back because it's the track button, and I'll replace it with the track and snow button like the manuals have. I have some aftermarket thing here. This one is not part of OEM, but I have a... Oh, okay, I can take this out. Maybe I can use my... Oh, yeah. Okay, so in order to get it out, it's good to take the ashtray out and then pull it up from here, and then you'll get one edge up, and here you go. And down here are a few plugs that you need to undo in order to get this completely out. Alright, we do need to remove the entire center console. Down here are two Phillips heads. So here are some caps that you need to remove. Yep, so here you pop these off. Bolts back here that you need to remove. I got it loose. And same for the other side. Special looking bolts like this. And this will let you remove the armrest. And then you can pull off this thing. Let's see, and now in the bottom you have two more Phillips screws. You need to remove the handbrake cover as well. What's the holdup? On these two sides down here there's two more of these screws. I moved the seat back and this gives me way more room. Come here, you mother... Alright. Let's try that again. Oh. But if you raise this up, then I think it kind of came loose. I used to have navigation, but I like my cup holders. Disconnect one plug here, 10 mils. Let's go. Bye bye, automatic gearbox. Got this one. Last one. This one is mega tight. I don't know what has happened to it. Oh my god, did I break a bolt? Yep. Carpet clips on the left side here. Okay. On the other side, same story. Oh yeah. Let's get this top part off. Alright. Okay. Oh. This has a rubber part, so I really want to avoid creating any new holes, that I can actually just push this down here and then use rivets to fasten it to 4 holes, and this will seal the cabin properly from the outside. Prepare the wiring loom of the manual transmission. You only really need 2 wires from here, and it's for the reverse light switch. So I have currently put my transmission in reverse. I have already found the 2 wires. So if I measure the resistance between these two, it will show it's like 2 ohms. So if I release it, you can see this one here means it's infinite resistance. So put it out of reverse, then you can see there is no contact anymore here. I also I don't want to solder it in, so I created 2 plugs, and this will enable me to remove the transmission if I ever need to service the clutch or do something else, so it will be easier to disconnect. I also put heat shrink here to prevent any moisture and dirt to get in. The rest of the wires I folded back into this tube here and I isolated them. In order to clear the transmission tunnel, instead of changing the car's gearbox hole, I had to trim from here a bit. So this will make it fit without any modifications to the body. The transmission tunnel, I did have to bend it up a tiny bit, so probably you would need to shave more, just a tiny bit more. I managed to break it here by accident because I bent it too hard, so probably it would be better to hammer it from underneath, but I already put the gearbox in and I really didn't want to take it out, so I had to bend it from inside. Or you can just cut this part, just like 2 centimeters, cut it, and it will fit really nicely. In order to put the shifter boot in here, Since I bent this edge up, then I added some sound insulation strips. Thicker layer here and thinner layer here, so it's kind of even. Then drilled holes according to this thing through these, and put in screws. Also the carpet had plastic clips here on the side, so I cut the clips and I'll just tuck it under, and when I put this, the edge here will hold the carpet in place on both sides. And I cut this so that it still has the wire clips, so this wire could clip into it still. The manual transmission is now installed. I did have to really tiny bit dent the tunnel because I couldn't get the input shaft of the gearbox to go past the clutch splines. There just didn't seem to be enough room. I have the slave cylinder installed. Also the cable for it, I already bled the clutch, so it's ready to go. And the drive shaft of the manual, the front part of it, this part, fit perfectly without any issues. I still need to fasten these bolts and then put the exhaust back on, and that should be it. I am missing though the bracket that's supposed to hold the manifold to the gearbox. So before assembling everything, it might be a good idea to check that everything is working like it should. So I have currently the car in reverse, and I raised up one of the rear wheels. So now I will use my tool to crank the engine around a tiny bit, and it should move to the correct side. Yes, it's reversing, and I before did also the first gear, and then it went the other direction. And I also tested neutral, so when it's in neutral, then it shouldn't move around. Now I have double checked that I did tighten all the bolts, starting from these hanger bolts. They are 50 Newton meters. The bolts that connect the drive shafts together, they are 70, I believe. Don't forget your heat shield. Don't forget to check your transmission mount bolts. Attach the exhaust, and don't forget to retighten the engine mount bolts through here. They're 70 Newton meters. And also the transmission cooler, I just looped the line back, so this went before to the automatic transmission, and I just made a U so it wouldn't drip and it wouldn't be open to gather dust. Some Lexus ISs actually have the transmission cooler built into the radiator, but mine has one that uses the engine coolant. So this clamp that goes here, I had it manufactured by a friend. It is impossible to find these days, it seems. And the clutch line, it is now no longer leaking. And I had this I went to a shop and had this end fitting made, so it's custom made. Charged me 20 euros for it, so one hell of expensive clutch line. I have a little problem with this. The clutch starts taking already very at the bottom, so basically I have to press the clutch all the way down, and as soon as I even release it by a few millimeters, it already starts taking. So apparently the IS200 also had a dual mass flywheel, so I ordered this longer rod here that will go into the slave cylinder, and hopefully this will alleviate the problem. And if I'm anyways taking this apart, I ordered a rebuild kit. I mean, if it's already out, then why not? I'll just fix it. As you can see, the old cylinder is a bit scored, and gasket is not the worst condition, but they're pretty hard. So this is the new one, and you can see the new push rod will be also way longer. Also the rubber boot is quite not very good looking anymore, and I got a new bleeder valve as well. Otherwise the cylinder looks quite nice and clean, no real pitting. I removed some rust from this lip here. Apparently This longer one was a bit too long. It wasn't possible to fit it, so I cut it with an angle grinder 1 centimeter shorter and made the tip a bit round. Alright, we have 3 pedals. That was the fuck nightmare. By far the worst part of doing this swap is to get this clutch pedal in there. So I did not remove any of the trim, it's not necessary, but now first what you need to do, I don't have this computer here, but you will have a traction computer here. It's attached with 2 bolts. One is here and one is up here. So also remove the brake pedal. So first remove this pin, pull this out, and all the way up there. I'll try to yoga a bit to see if I can show you. So up there, here is the bolt that you need to undo, then you can get the brake pedal out. I would recommend to do that. Now for the clutch, you will have to get this one in, and then the other one you can't even see. To get that one in, I actually had to remove the spring, and from here you can get it. But one of the bad ones is also, let me see if I can find it, yeah, back there. Before you install the clutch pedal, there will be a bracket that holds the wires. So you'll have to undo that, and you will have to find a longer bolt for it, because this one will not reach. For making the first hole, I also screwed in that upper bracket there, and then marked it with a pen and drilled out the pilot hole. So now I know that these 2 holes are definitely lined up, and then the third hole will be also correctly located. I have made the first bolt hole, it's the lower one. I drilled it from the cabin to the outside, not from here to there, because it's very limited space here, with an 8mm drill. Definitely don't install the brake pedal before you have completed the clutch pedal. So now I have drilled 2 of the smaller holes, and I need to get the center for this cylinder itself. So in order to do that, I measured from the edge, not the center of the bolt, but from the edge of the bolt, I measured into the center, dead center of this cylinder. Be careful, this part here can move, so make sure you get the actual center. So in this case it was 27mm. Now I lock this in place so this won't move. Here's a screw for that. And then from the inside, but it's easier for me to show from the outside, I measured from the edge of that hole into the center and made a tiny pilot hole for it. So as you can see, I have 2 holes. This one I missed a bit, but it was far enough that I could make a new hole, which is exactly on one line. Like, also make sure it's in the same line with these 2 holes. So if you pull a straight line to here, then this hole has to be on that line. And now I will use a drill bit to hopefully get it to the correct size. So this one is 30mm in diameter, so I need to go to the correct depth. This pneumatic air drill worked perfectly, and I would definitely recommend this kind of drill bit. It doesn't leave a nasty edge like with some saw looking round things that immediately make the correct size hole. I even used it to deburr the edges of the smaller holes. The lower or the left side is closer to the center of the cylinder than the next bolt, so it's not symmetrical. But as you can see, it goes right in here. I received the 2 pedal pads, so one for the clutch and the other for the brake. Alright. A little bit of silicone. Alright. Oh, finally. Yes, that's how it should be. So the only two wires from the manual that we will connect to this wiring loom is the red black and red blue, and that is for the reverse lights. So currently I have jumped these reverse connectors, and when we go into the car it will display that we are in reverse, and also you can see the reverse light went on. To drive the car, we don't want it to think that it's in reverse, we want it to be in low gear. What we need to do is prevent the ECU from finding out that it is in reverse. Cut or depin from here a connector. You have 3 connectors here and 2 connectors here, so it's the middle one out of the 3, and the pin that we need to undo is this from this right side. It's the 3rd pin, so it's this red and black pin. Still light up the rear lights, which is what we need, but otherwise the ECU will not think that the car is in reverse. I tried to depin but gave up. Here I cut the wire, this red black wire. I'll put the plug back in, and I have hooked up the reverse switch here. You can see that the reverse light is on, but on the dash it doesn't show that it's in reverse. If you want to keep cruise control working, then you need to follow the schematic that is posted in the speed sensor link in the video description. And pin 1, so the input, goes to the cam sensor, so it's this one here. It is the E29 green wire. But don't cut this wire, this green wire. This cam input you splice into. And the 2nd pin, so the output, goes to the clutch speed sensor and the vehicle speed sensor. So D21 red and D23 blue yellow. So you cut these, and then from the ECU side you wire them. Then you need to get power to your Arduino. I personally used ignition switched power, which is A17 black orange on this plug here, and pin 4 for the Arduino will be ground, and I spliced into A1 which is chassis ground. I did not film how I soldered this schematic together, but it is exactly as on this speedometer website. You can make it rather compact. As you see, it fits into the same box here with the ECU. And if I need to change the program, here's a USB port that I can use for that. I personally used cal factor of 4.7, which enables me to activate cruise control around 2000 RPM. If you don't want to retain cruise control, then you don't need to have this. If you only want to fix your engine light or cells, cut from here 2 wires. It's the clutch speed sensor, it's D21, it's a red wire, it's over here. And also vehicle speed sensor, which is a blue-yellow wire at D23. It's quite close to it, it's like 2 places over from the red. So you cut these, and then from the ECU side you wire them to the cam input on here, E29 green. But don't cut this wire, this green wire. This cam input you splice into and send the cam signal to these 2 wires here on the ECU side. The wiring loom side you just isolate and you do nothing with them. From this plug you will need to connect the 2 black wires. So if you look into the socket, then it's the bottom left and bottom right connector. So one is black and the other is black and white. Split this red blue one, which is, if you look into the plug, it's the top and middle one. So this is 12 volts, and this one you will need for multiple things. Firstly, you will need it for the reverse light. So the reverse light is right next to it. It's the red black. The thing is that you will need the 12 volts, which is the center one, also for putting it into gears. I brought the entire harness up for the automatic transmission, and I split the 12 volt wire, so the red blue one, from here, and also I took the reverse light and sent it down. I wrapped it in this protective stuff and created the plug there, and that will go to the transmission. So the center bottom two plugs, so the bottom left one, it's brown, and that one is if you want to put it into drive, and the bottom second from right side, so this one here, is yellow green, and that you can use to put it into second gear. So I have extended the brown, the red and the blue, and also the yellow green wire. By connecting the yellow and blue here, it will go into L, and connecting the blue and green will go to drive. So later I'll have a toggle switch in the cabin. Run the cables for the gear selector through the firewall. Next to where the hood release latch goes, there is spare holes. You need to just cut up the front of it, and then you can lead it through to the inside. You can see with these three wires I can then select between drive and low gear. The car is in gear L. It is the only gear that the ECU of the automatic Lexus doesn't try to shift, which is what we want in the manual, and also the VVTi will still work as normal. So in order to get it to L, there's a connector here. As you can see, I have pinned together temporarily at the moment. It's the bottom two pins. It's the green yellow green wire here, and we have automatic cluster, and I can switch between drive and low using a tiny switch here. The problem with neutral is that VVTi is not activated with the stock ECU, and if you put it to drive, you will have hesitations because the ECU wants to switch gears, but there's no automatic gearbox. I attached the cabling with a few zip ties and bolted down the resistors down here, and the clutch line I ran also from up and over, and then it goes down from here into the existing clips. In order to get rid of the rest of the cells, I riveted a bunch of these resistors to a metal plate, and I screwed this metal plate to the frame. There was already a hole present, and I ran the wire from around here. Be sure to place these resistors somewhere where they have plenty of fresh air and they won't burn anything, because they get really hot. Some people opt to use the solenoids from the automatic transmission, but I find that they're rather bulky and big. I have the car out of gear, and I have connected an OBD2 reader, and the main thing to watch here is the red line. It's cruise control vehicle speed, so it's the signal that we're now taking from the cam sensor. I'm out of gear and I'll start the car now. You will see that the red line started to do some movement. If it goes over 21 miles per hour, this one actually shows miles per hour, and I have switched from L to D, then around 2000 or more RPM is needed so I can activate cruise control. And as you will see, I'm not holding the gas, and when I switch cruise control off, then this will also go down. And now I cannot activate cruise control because the car ECU thinks that we are under 21 miles per hour. So at idle, it thinks that the car is going about 10.5 miles per hour. When I rev the engine to 3000 RPM, roughly, then this goes to around 6 miles per hour. So instead of the vehicle speed, the cruise control now sees the engine speed. The snow button wire I need to run back here. Deep in this connector, because we will be using it on our traction off and snow button. You first need to pry up this white part here, and then from the same side you enter this pin, and you will feel there is like a tiny tab that you have to push up. It's a bit difficult to get at first. Once you get it, then you can pull out the connectors. Yep, see? Yep, there you go. Whiting a bit more. Alright, we'll repin so we can have our traction off and snow button, and this plug will fit right in. You also have to now depin this one. It has the exact same system. You have to pry up this part and then you can depin it. When you hook up the snow cable from here, then you cannot activate ECT power. So you have to choose whether you want ECT power always on. I chose to just isolate these and only connect the snow button. Traction and snow button now are hooked up. Here you can see the colors. The right one is green, then the yellow one that we extended, then it's a brown one, then it's an empty slot, then it's a red green, and the last one on the left is white green. I have assembled the interior. Now I have the dual snow and track button. When I press track, then track is activated. When I press snow, then snow is activated. If you want to keep the snow functionality, initially I connected here these wires that activate this ECT power, but the manual never had it, and you cannot activate ECT power and snow at the same time. Second gear, third gear. Now I will switch to drive, and I can enable cruise control, and it's enabled. Now I can raise the speed. Raise it more. This was now 2 clicks. And I can lower the speed. Since I don't have the clutch safety switch, I can press down the clutch and actually switch down. The cruise control is still working, but just since it's 5th gear, now it will be at a different speed. But I can also go higher by putting it to 6th. Didn't touch cruise control. It goes back to what it was before. I can disable cruise control, no problem. The fun part is I'm now in 2nd gear. As you can see, I can also go quite slow in. I'm not touching the gas. It's fully cruise control. When you leave it in drive, then it will have hesitation. Second gear, full. Second gear, full acceleration. Yeah, there's the hesitation. Again. With cruise control, doesn't really matter. The only thing I noticed with this Arduino sending the signal that there's like a bit of latency between raising speed or lowering speed, so it's a bit more slow to react, but it's nothing that would bother me. And when I press the clutch down, then this happens, but it's fine. And I let the clutch go, it just picks up the speed and balances out again. That's why I never installed the clutch safety switch. As soon as you touch the brake, it will disengage. We're entering a lower speed zone, so now I'll use cruise control. I'll just switch to 5th gear instead of 6th, and it will slow me down. Cruise control still active. I will go now to 4th gear, and I didn't touch anything in cruise control. I hope you enjoyed the video. So this is how I did my manual transmission to the lock.